I broke, and I managed to get up to the curb. I heard the Lord say, go to the police station, go find the Department of Mental Health. And I had minded up to go to the police station. And I went to the police station. I asked the police man that was on duty, I said, excuse me, do you know where the Department of Mental Health is? He said, oh, it's across the street. And I said, okay. I said, well, if I go to the Department of Mental Health, at least they put me in the hospital, I'll have a place to get off the street for the night. And it was almost 5 o'clock, and everything closes at 5 o'clock. It was about 10 minutes to 5. So when I got there, it was a man sitting in the lobby, and it was just me, and she talked to him. I was like, I hope she take me before before the time ran out. And so it was maybe like about 5 minutes to 5, and she said, ma'am, can I help you? And I came on in, and I told her what happened, what was going on, and I said, I want to kill myself. And she said, why? What's wrong? And I told her my story. I said, I just don't want to live no more. She said, do you want to hurt anybody? I said, no, I just don't want to live no more. I can't. I've been homeless and I've been struggling. I've been trying. I just can't. I just don't want to do this no more. I can't do it no more.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Heartforward, Conversations from the Heart. This is Carrie Morrison. Today's episode is going to usher Season 4 to a close, and I'm going to take a break from podcasting until the end of this year. For this final interview, I wanted to share the story of a remarkable woman that I have come to know through Heartforward's work in Hollywood, dating back to 2021. Today, you are going to meet Georgette Darby, and I think her story illustrates how we make assumptions that are too simple about people who find themselves out of a job or homeless because of economic setbacks. I challenge you to walk a mile in Georgette's shoes and see if you would land where she is today. A woman who overcame stupendous challenges to earn a college degree, the first in her family. A woman who today is a board member of her local neighborhood council and is an ambassador member of a new clubhouse forming in Hollywood under the guidance of Fountain House in New York City. When you hear her story, I would encourage you to place yourself in her situation as she describes her life journey as a child who suffered trauma at a very young age, to the challenges of growing up in a household that felt, in her words, to be violent at times. Imagine how you might graduate and then make your way to community college without strong family support, both emotional and financial. As I heard her tell the stories of trying to find a safe place to live while working part-time and taking 2 buses to get from South LA to the San Fernando Valley for a job that started at 6 a.m. in the morning, I had to be honest with myself. Could I have done that all by myself? I'll let her tell her story, and we had to shorten parts of it to keep it to a decent length for this episode. But I think you will agree with me at the end that Georgette is one strong, remarkable, and resilient woman. Well, good morning, Georgette. It is so terrific to see you here in the podcast studio this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you today.
I have been looking forward to this because, well, number one, it's the final episode of Season 4, which it's taken me longer to put this season together because I've been so busy, as you know, and some of the things I've been busy with, you and I share the activity, and we will talk about that.
Yes.
But I also just think I love your story, which I have come to learn more about in the past 6 or 8 months. And I just felt it would be important to end the season with your story because to me it's a story of great resilience, and I want to set the stage for that.
All right. Well, I'm honored, and I'm here to tell my story.
All right, Georgette. Well, so let's kind of, before I go back to your origin story, let's paint the picture of who you are now, right? So give me a little sense of who you are now, some of the things you're involved in, and paint that picture for me.
Well, now, the person I am now, I've always been a person to always, maybe help the underdog. I'm a person that if a person complains about something, if something's wrong, I'm a person to try to do something about it. My motto is, I'm not just about it, I am about it. I walk the walk and I talk the talk. So I've always been that way. Even through my college years, I've always participated like in student government and had positions of power, especially when it's down with dealing with fees and things that's dealing with activism per se. So that kind of led me to where I am now, is being active especially dealing with the mental health crisis that's going on here across the country and especially Los Angeles. So I'm involved with the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council. I got involved with them, I believe it's 2022, as far as on their public safety committee, because I had issues dealing with noise. I was with a nightclub that's in the Hollywood area, and it disturbed the residents at Villas at Gower, where I live. And nobody was willing to speak up with the council person. And you, Carrie Morrison, put me in contact with the council person, and I was able to speak on behalf of Villas of Gower and managed to get the noise cut down so it wouldn't be so loud so the residents can go on with their living. And so that brought me to be on the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council as far as public safety. I started dealing with the public safety as far as with dealing with homeless and other issues around homelessness. And I managed to get appointed as a board member. As the year went on, the 2022-23 year went on, I started serving on the outreach committee, and they asked me to be an outreach chair because they saw I had strong leadership qualities. I said, fine, I'll do it. So I was able to do that. And I was also asked to be a part of this new venture that Hollywood 2.0, along with conjunction with Heartforward, to be a part of this thing called the Clubhouse. And I managed to get involved with that. So I've just always feel like I want to fight for people who don't have the mind to fight for themselves. Because I struggled greatly through the mental health system. I learned a lot of things that people don't tell you about. I had to learn along the way just by learning and doing. So,
yeah, when I first heard glimpses of this, I was in awe of how challenging it was for you for those years. But you've emerged as a survivor, and I think your lived experience helps to inform what we need to change.
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
So that sets the stage for where you are right now, and we will return to especially the Clubhouse experience. Tell us a little bit about your origin story, where you were born. A little bit about what your childhood was like, your family dynamics.
Well, I'm even with the accent I have, people always ask me, where you from? Where you from? I'm born and raised in California, right from South Central Los Angeles, Florence and Central area, well, Florence and Firestone, as they call it. My parents were from the South. My dad was from Louisiana. My mother was from Texas, so that's where I get the accent. Mm-hmm. I went to school in South Central, Miramonte Elementary, Thomas Edison Junior High, and Fremont High School. Graduated 1981. From there, I went on to LA Trade Tech in 1981. When I got to Trade Tech, I started having some issues dealing with mental health issues. Then after that, 1985, I decided to go into computer information systems. I got my AS in Science, Associate in Science and Computer Information Systems. From that, I didn't go to work right away. I was also involved with student politics at LA Trade Tech, Associated Students, where I was this historian. But I got a chance to come back as an alumni and work as a secretary for like about a 9-month period. After that, I took a test for the United States Postal Service. I passed that test, and I worked for the United States Postal Service 1 year from 89 until 90. But I was still having issues at home dealing with my family because it was a very violent and abusive environment that I came in. Even though my parents meant well, it was, I want to say kind of they paid. This is my brother. I had a brother that was raised in the house with me. My younger brother, they played favorites with him because he was the baby. And also, I don't know if you know traditional Southern black families, the male of the household, no matter where he's born in the birth order, the male is always they seen as the leader of the family. But there was always issues between him and I as well.
So he was a younger brother, and there were no other siblings?
Well, I have older siblings, but they were gone out of the house.
Okay.
I have 2 older sisters, and I have an older brother. They're no longer in the house. They're gone. We married with their lives and things. So me and my brother and I should say, were the babies of the family.
So let's look at that a little more closely. That period, it's hard for any young person. They graduate from college, high school, and now they are setting off on their life. And it's tricky. People are 18 years old and they're supposed to somehow have it all together. And it sounds like you went to trade tech but started to experience some challenges. Can you be more specific about, which is very typical for, young adults, but did you have the support you needed to weather these challenges that you were experiencing those first couple years of school?
I would say no, because if in the African American families, in some of them, there's a stigma against African American families going to see psychiatrists or psychologists or get some type of therapy. It's almost like, ain't nothing wrong with you. We'll pray about it. You're going to be all right. We'll pray about it. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Go ahead and do what you need to do. But previously, and when I was 9 years old, there was some trauma that I experienced. I was molested by a family member when I was 9 years old. And my mother had the person prosecuted, went to court and everything, but I never received the therapy to get through that particular trauma. And it changed my behavior immensely. I started dressing like a tomboy. I started acting out more vitally. I was always...
Was that even after 9 years old, that young?
Yes.
Yeah.
I started being more violent. I gained weight because I felt if I gained weight, nobody wouldn't bother me. I would make myself unattractive. And I started fighting all through my junior high school. I fought from 7th grade all the way up into 9th grade. I was always fighting. I was always getting into it with somebody, fighting. And my parents at the time, they thought I was going to be homosexual because I started taking on the mannerisms of a tough boy.
Just to protect yourself.
To protect myself, because I've always been kind of like the oddball out, but I was smart. As far as school-wise, I got pretty good grades. I was smart, but I was always kind of picked on as a nerd. I was the fat, overweight kid with glasses that dressed like a boy, and our economics really wasn't that strong. We were kind of poor. We wasn't poor where we were just starving. Like we just didn't have all the latest things the other neighborhood kids had. Even though we had a home, we had a car, we had a couple of cars, but we just wasn't what they say with the Joneses.
Right, exactly. So it's tough enough to be a young, like a teenager and adolescent in high school when you're comparing yourself to the other kids, but yet you've had this unresolved traumatic incident that nobody has even allowed you to surface, basically.
No.
Yeah. So that, and so nowhere during high school was there ever a counselor you could talk to or anyone you could unload this to?
No.
No. Wow.
I just dealt with it, and I started getting myself involved. And when I got to high school, I really didn't fight because I've always loved music. Even in elementary school, I was fortunate enough to be in orchestra, and I sang in the little chorus, but I had to make a choice. Do you want to do music or do you want to do the chorus? I chose the orchestra. So in the orchestra, I felt that was a way for me to express myself. And then again, when I came home, my father would take my violin. He would take it and start playing it like a guitar. It would just kind of mess with my string. Why you want to bring this old okie doke music in here? Why didn't you play the saxophone or something?
No.
I would get ridiculed because of the instrument I played.
Oh, no. And plus he would ruin the strings.
Ruin the strings. And my instructor, why your strings are always out of tune? Every time I bring your instrument's out of tune, something's broken. And, but my mother, even though she was supportive to a certain extent, she was still afraid of my father to a certain extent. She would come to when we have a lot of little orchestra things, we would go play different concerts, and she was very supportive of my music and things like that. And she would come. My father never came to any of my performances and things like that, but she was always supportive of anything I did. So through the orchestra, I was able to express myself musically. Through that, I learned how to play cello. I got introduced to learning how to play flute a little bit. I learned how to play piano. My music teacher, since I was able to hear things and just pick it up on the piano, he said, "Oh, you can play by ear," which I can do. I can play by ear. And so I learned how to play a few instruments through the orchestra. And then when I got to junior high school, I still kept up with instruments, but I chose woodwinds instead. So through junior high school and high school, I was in band. I was able to keep up the clarinet. I learned how to play bass, clarinet. I continued to play flute. I play a little bit of tenor saxophone a little bit. I started learning how to play a little percussion. I learned how to play the bells a little bit. I started trying to learn how to play snare drum a little bit. And I was always just a musician type person.
I'm in awe that I did not know that about you. And that just tells me we need to go to the Hollywood Bowl this summer and hear the LA Philharmonic on one of those summer nights.
I would love that.
I'll tell you later about how I ended up playing the oboe in high school,
Okay.
but that's a story for afterward. I know. Well, I was wondering I thought if you played the oboe, but it sounds like it was the clarinet, right?
Clarinet.
So that's really, that's just so hard to not have your father's approval because you are intelligent and smart. You are now, and I know you always have been. Obviously, you're very gifted musically. You're strong. I'm sure you were strong as a child too. You know, you weren't like hiding out in the corner somewhere.
I had to be because it's like, I had to start learning how to, especially in school, because I used to get bullied a lot. And I'm the type of person, like, when I get tired, when I get really tired of something, I don't like this part of myself. When I get tired of somebody doing something to me, that brings out the very worst in me. Like I said, I've always been bullied because I've always been like the child that had the glasses. I've always been a little bit taller, a little bit bigger than most of the kids in my class. When I got to the 4th grade, the teacher happened to go out of the classroom. We was on the 2nd floor, room 19. I can remember this as plain as day. And at the time, the schools, they had like these radiators for heaters. And we was on the 2nd floor, and I sat in the back, almost next to the radiator. And this guy kept picking with me, always kept picking with me. So when the teacher went out of the room, and you know how kids they get all boisterous and start doing all kind of crazy things. The guy got up, he slapped me in my face.
Oh my gosh.
And that was like, I just lost it. And so it was kind of like sitting in the back too. So when he thought he was going to walk away, I don't know where I got the strength. I grabbed him by his neck, and we was upstairs. I grabbed him by his neck, and I was like pushing him all the way to the window, and I had his back almost halfway out the window. I was pushing him out, trying to push him out on his head out the 2nd story window. It took 2 teachers to pull me off of him.
So, but if that was in 4th grade, that was after your traumatic incident. So
Yes.
you're just trying to defend yourself. That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, Georgette, so you survive public school, high school.
Yes.
You get out. You're now at Trade Tech, a teenager, 18, 19 years old, now trying to make your way in life. And you're having now some of these setbacks that kind of take you off the beaten track for a couple of years, right?
Yes.
Can you describe what happened and maybe what would have helped at that time to keep you from, kind of the little downward spiral that you went through at that time?
I think maybe some therapy, and maybe a little bit more understanding from my parents, because there was a lot of stuff going on with my father at the time, and my mother. Old school marriages back then, for better for worse, you stayed no matter what. The guy could be doing whatever, you hung in there, because both of my parents, they were. My dad, he was married 3 times, and this was my mom was his 3rd marriage. And this was my mother's second marriage for my dad. So they were together 34 years. And they stayed together no matter what. He cheated on my mom, and she would always cry about it, and she would nothing do about it. But he would come home and take it out on us. And, he would, as far as I know, I've never seen him physically hit my mom, but they would get into these bad arguments.
And you're trying to go to school, and you're living at home.
Yes.
With all this going on.
Yeah,
yes.
and I basically had nowhere to run.
So I know that right around 1990, you decided to enroll at Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Yes, and I had been thinking about going to finish my education, because I'm like, at the time I didn't have really enough money to just move out. Rent was getting sky high. And I know I really didn't want to live by myself. I said, I need to get out of here because it was getting too violent at my house.
Mm-hmm. So you're extremely motivated to get out of that very, very traumatic household and move somewhere and get your life back together. How did you manage to pull that off, to get out of the house and to get into finishing college?
So on my off days, I'd get on the bus, the 53 bus. The end of the line was Cal State Dominguez Hills. And so it would let off in front of the school, have my application filled out and stuff, and start paying my fees. I had to go downtown to get my birth certificate on my day off and things like that. And I started paying my money down because I was going to live on campus. And I had an interview and saw the apartments. They were already furnished. All you need to do was bring your own personal stuff.
So that was relatively affordable for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was my way to get my head together and get out on my own.
Did they give you any financial aid to help you?
Yes, I did get financial aid for that time, because I had to file independent, because both of my parents, they wasn't working anymore. So by me being 26 years old, I was able to go independent.
So what was it that kind of motivated you, to as a young African-American woman without a whole lot of family cheerleading behind you, to actually realize I need to get a college degree if I'm going to move my life along? That, to me, is amazing that you were able to direct yourself in that way and be so intentional. Was there anybody mentoring you, or what was inspiring you? No, because I'm the first one in my family to actually finish with a degree. Now, my brother went to Cal State LA, and he got all the support that he wanted. They helped paid for him to go to school, and they even bought him a car and things like that. He didn't finish. He got to maybe the third year. It didn't finish. So you're the only one in this family who has a college degree.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let me just honor you for that achievement.
Thank you.
But I know a little bit about your story, that while you're at Cal State Dominguez Hills, things really started to fall apart with your family.
Yes, it did.
And this was a difficult chapter. I don't know how much you want to share about that.
I'll tell it all. I ain't got nothing to hide. I went to my mom. Like I stated before, my mom was very sick. She had Crohn's disease, and it was basically eating her alive. And at the time, they knew very little about Crohn's disease, and they wasn't testing the blood like they do now. So she went out to County USC General Hospital, which is a teaching hospital. Mm-hmm. Those were the only people that diagnosed what she had. It was Crohn's disease, and there was very little known about Crohn's disease. It's a disease that basically destroys the intestines.
Wow.
It closes them. It closes them up. It destroys your intestines. It closes them up and kills your intestines. And eventually, that basically just took her on out of here. But at the time, the house, we had bought the house where we lived in 1968, and the house was almost finished, paid for. But by them not working anything, the house was in ill repair. We needed a new roof. Things was just falling apart. And, me and my brother were getting grown. We wasn't going to stay there anymore. And it was just they was trying to figure out, we've never had a will, which they should have had, never had a will. And it was their plan, because we lived in a duplex. Oh, we want you guys to live next door to each other. You live in one side, you live in the other side. That was their dream.
Their perfect plan, right?
Yeah, but they never had any will made out. And the house was almost finished, paid for. And so what had happened was, by when I left for college in 1990, my mama went into the hospital. She never came home.
Wow.
She never came home. So my dad, he had heart problems, And, he wasn't taking care of himself. He was smoking weed, still drinking, and still trying to be young. And he was still having an affair with this other woman. And so he ended up dying before she did.
Oh, my goodness.
He died 2 days. He died in November 1990, and my mother was still in the hospital. Little did I know they had signed. My brother had an older girlfriend. She was 2 years older than me. They tricked my mom and dad to sign the house over to him.
Oh, my goodness.
I still had, it would have been 4 ways. And plus we still had, my dad had property in Louisiana as well because my grandfather had a little money. And there was some land in Louisiana that needed to be dealt with as well. He got that too. But he tricked my mom in signing away her share of the property, and my brother got my dad's property because he was the favorite. So that gave him 66 and a third. That only left me with 33 and a third. He was trying to take it all. So while I was at Cal State Dominguez Hills, my first year at Dominguez Hills, I came in as a junior. I was working as a dispatcher for campus police at the time, but it was my day off. But I had found out what he was trying to do. So what I did, I got a friend of mine recommended me to a lawyer, and my lawyer said, well, what you're going to have to do for you to get anything, you're going to have to force him to buy you out. So I took a loan out on my half of the property to force him to buy him out. And he didn't know I had $10,000 cash in my purse when I came back to campus because the lawyer took me to sign the papers and I'd got the loan out on my property. So I was on campus that day, and he happened to come on campus. And I'm like, we had been stopped speaking. Because
you don't trust him at all.
I didn't trust him. At the time, I was having to be coming back on campus. I had this little cheap purse. I was getting ready to go over to Associated Students to check my mail in the box so I can go to work over at campus police that day. And so, and he come walking up behind me. And mind you, my brother's 6'7", and weigh, about 200 some plus pounds, and wear a size 14 shoe.
Oh, he's a big guy.
And so, hey, I want to talk to you. I'm like, I want you to sign these papers. I said, look, I don't want to talk to you. You need to talk to my lawyer. I'm not going to talk. You have to sign these papers here, and I'll make sure. I said, look, I'm not. You need to talk to my lawyer. My lawyer is so and so and so and so. And when I went to walk away from him, this is quote unquote, he said, bitch, before I see you get this house, I'll see you pushing a basket. He then took his fist, hit me behind my head so hard, I slid on my ass across the ground. My purse went one way, and I was on the ground.
Your purse has $10,000
$10,000
in
cash.
it.
He didn't know I had $10,000 cash in my purse. While I'm crawling, this was in broad daylight, and school was going on. Broad daylight, and people were standing around like, oh, stop it, oh, this. And he's kicking me in the side with these size 14 shoes in my side. I was bruised up, and I'm crawling to get this purse. I was in a fetal position at this time, trying to get this purse. One of the girls that wasn't working that day, she called the guys over at campus police to get him arrested, and he took off, and they didn't catch him. But they took me to the nurse's office, and I was all bruised up. My mother was in the hospital at the time. He had made it so it had a restraining order where I couldn't even go see her. She had no idea what he did.
Oh,
and my
gosh.
mother called and said, why you haven't been to
visit
see
her?
Me? Visit her, because she was out in Glendora Hospital out there. Why you haven't been to see me? I said, well, you signed the same thing saying you didn't want to be bothered. And she said, what did I sign? I don't know what I signed, because she was kind of like
disoriented.
Lucid, lucid. And she said, I don't know what I signed. And eventually I got permission, had to call the police and told them the story. What had happened was, and I showed her the paper, it wasn't her signature. He forced her signature, saying that he didn't want me to go see her.
Could you get all that reversed, or did
I got it reversed for that time? But it's still, at that time, the damage was all he done.
That is just shocking. It's shocking that how your brother would turn on you and just be so unbelievable blatant in trying to completely marginalize you from the inheritance and just even just your ability to survive economically in the future.
Yeah.
So your mom then passed away shortly thereafter.
She passed away in August of 1991.
So you're in school, you're working, you're now dealing with the loss of two parents.
Yes.
This really unstable economic situation that you find yourself in. How do you manage to graduate, and what happens next?
It took longer than usual because that first year I had to take withdrawals. I had to, eventually they did have a campus psychiatrist. So eventually, because of what happened to me and stuff like that, I was getting medical care, and they did have a campus medical center there. I was getting care from them, and I did go see a campus psychiatrist over there to talk about what was going on with me, because it was just too much. And I had to take the note around to my instructors and stuff, because there was no way I could complete that semester.
Mm-hmm.
They would nice enough to either give me incompletes where I can go back. If I go back within a year or so and change, I can get the grade change.
And was this like the first time you were able to actually have a conversation with a therapist where you felt safe to tell your story? What did that feel like?
It felt like it was a relief, but it still wasn't alleviating the problem, because it got to the point where I started really just like, I never really was a weed smoker or anything like that. I started wanting to take pills and stuff. I started medicating myself. I started drinking heavily, and I started finding drugs.
You've been through a lot, though.
I started taking Valium and other things like that.
Yeah, so in that time, was there a breakthrough moment where you felt like you could go back to school and finish?
I lived on campus, so that was my home. So that was the purpose of me going to Cal State Dominguez Hills, because they had on-campus housing. That was a way to get my head together and get safe. So I was killing two birds with one stone with that.
So tell me about life after graduation. What happened? Because I feel like you had a period of maybe 10 years or so where you kind of came out of this really traumatic experience of losing your parents and dealing with your brother and trying to get yourself going through the self-medication and all that. Now you eventually graduate, and then what happens? Okay,
after I graduate, I managed to keep.
And what was your degree in?
Public Administration, Criminal Justice, Bachelor of Science, 1996, spring 96. Mm-hmm. I managed to get involved, with student government. Like I said, I've always been the type of person to get involved with things and be active on campus life. I was able to get involved with student government and the academic senate. I even was a housing representative, because I lived in the apartments, Pueblo Domingo student apartments up there. I stayed there the entire 6 years.
So when you came out, then you had to look for a job.
There was a freeze with the state of California in 1996, 95, 96. The state of California was always doing their budget crisis. The field that I wanted to go into was I wanted to go work for the DA's office. I could have worked for the district attorney's office, or basically anything dealing with government per se, because it's public administration. But the concentration was criminal justice. There was a freeze, Southern California. There was a freeze. We're not hiring. So I ended up, I was on campus. I still worked on campus, but I wasn't working in the public safety office anymore. I was working in what they call instructional media, where they go take the films to the classrooms and set up sound equipment and things like that. So I was doing that. I was able to work there a semester after I graduated. And I was living off campus, but I had to find another job because
I had to pay the rent.
Yeah, I had to pay the rent because I had to leave Cal State Dominguez Hills. So I moved into a little small apartment in Hawthorne. I lived in Hawthorne for about a year. I lived on Cordery, off of Cordery and Prairie, in a single apartment, and the rent at the time was $4.95. And that was basically my whole check for instructional media, because you only got paid once a month when you worked for the state, and it was only 20 hours a week. I think the rate of pay at the time, I think I was making like $6.35 an hour at the time.
And you're like 28 years old or so?
Yeah, I was close to 30. I was about 30.
Okay. So you've got to find more work if you're going to make this happen.
So it was tight.
In this next section, Georgette describes the roller coaster of what it feels like to experience unstable housing. And this was during a time when housing was still somewhat affordable as compared to today. She couldn't keep paying the rent on her apartment in Hawthorne unless and until she could find a full-time job. So she made a decision that she thought would save her money, but proved to completely destabilize her. A friend of hers offered to let her rent a room in her apartment because she would be leaving for the Army. Georgette took her up on the offer and paid her $100 a month and found that there was another guy who had a similar arrangement and was sleeping in the living room. Within a few months, however, there was an eviction notice on the front door because though Georgette had been paying the tenant, her so-called friend was not paying the landlord. Within a few months, she had to find another place to stay. Another friend arranged for her to move in with her mother. Meantime, Georgette found another job in Sherman Oaks, working for a service that did third-party verifications for various phone providers. She got a job for $6.35 an hour, but it was still part-time. Living with her friend's mom and limited by the part-time job, Georgette needed to find a better situation and more work. She prevailed upon her employer to give her full-time hours, and that allowed her to look for a place to rent for between $350 to $400 a month. She eventually found a place at 43rd and Main, and her job was at Sepulveda and Morrison Street in the San Fernando Valley.
At this place called Teletech. I worked there, and then after I worked at Teletech,
Is that the story you told me where you had to take the bus like at 5 in the morning?
5 in the morning. I had to get up. I lived on 43rd and Main. The bus was across the street. I had to go to the valley. I had to get downtown to get the bus, either the 424 or the 525 to go to Sherman Oaks. So I would have to be at work sometimes at 6 o'clock. And so I would have to get up at 3 and be on the bus stop for 4:15 to make sure I got the bus. I worked at Teletech for like 3 years.
What I find amazing about that story, especially when you look at how people are so lazy about, using public transportation, like that was your lifeline.
I had to.
And having to get up at 3 in the morning in order to get to work at 6.
Yeah.
And then having to take it home at night.
Yep.
But this is what you needed to do to survive, and it's extraordinary to me. Yeah.
I had to. So I stayed at Teletech did the Apple project for maybe like about 9 or 10 months. And a friend was working at the law firm that I had left. She said, "Oh, they need somebody in the accounting department, this. I said, well, she was receptionist at the time. I said, well, see, can you get me in, this, because it's almost back then, it was like, it's not what you know, it was who you know, how to get a job back then.
True.
Probably still is. But I was able to get an interview with the accounting manager, and she liked me. So I started off in the accounting department. So I was able to stay at that job. I was still lived on 43rd, and I was able to leave from 43rd because it was a shithole. And I was able to move on 8th Avenue and Slauson to the apartment. I stayed there 13 years until I became homeless.
Okay, so we are going to jump to that part of the story in a moment, but let me just reiterate. So this law firm you worked for ended up being a very stable place for you.
Yes.
And what law firm was it?
Manatt Phelps and Phillips.
Okay, super well-known law firm. That's like one of
big
the pedigrees in Los Angeles.
Yes, it is.
And so you started in the accounting department, but you worked your way up to legal secretary,
yes,
right?
I started off office clerk. What I had to do to be legal secretary, I started a 401k. In my 401k, I was only saving 7% at a time because this was new to me. I'm learning about how to save money and things. This was new. So I started saving money, but I didn't know because I was taking the bus the whole time. And somebody said, "Oh, you can borrow from your 401k to get a car." I said, "You can?" Because I didn't know. Nobody was telling me nothing. So I borrowed from my 401k. That's how I ended up getting my car. So for me to get the job as the secretary, I had to go to school. I didn't have no money out of pocket to go to school. Had to borrow some more money. So I took $1,500 out of my 401k. I went to UCLA from September to December, did the extension, and got my certificate, legal secretary certificate. And I was able to do an office clerk position, and then they started putting me in the floater pool, and I started learning litigation.
What I think is really important about your story for people to listen, especially as we come upon what's going to become the really tough, as if you didn't already have some tough chapters in your life, but we're coming to the toughest chapter. And so how much you had to do yourself, just the drive and the motivation you had, the willingness to take these ridiculously long public transportation trips to get to work, then to borrow money in order to advance yourself again, to get this UCLA extension class. You're really pushing and striving, which is extraordinary. And so I think people need to really kind of appreciate that about you, because then what happened in 2008 is like you're a case study in probably what happened to tens of thousands of people across the country, right? And I think we need to really have some grace for that. So talk about that.
Okay, in 2008, some people may be aware we had a stock market crisis where the stock market just crashed and hit, basically it went to shit.
Right, it was the start of the Great Recession.
Yeah, it went to shit. And so at the time, my law firm was mixed up in a lot of the white collar stuff. Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, Countrywide. A lot of those big things were our largest clients, and we lost a lot of clients. And so it was my understanding, that's what I was told by HR, anybody that was in 10 years or more, they were letting go. I was at 9.5. So guess who got the big old axe? Shut.
Tell me about tell me about the day they told you that. What did that feel like?
To a certain extent, call me crazy if you want to, but you know what? I had been trying to leave Manatt, but I was afraid to leave because at the time, by me being a single person, I didn't have to pay for none of my benefits. I had great doctors at Cedars-Sinai. That was some of the best medical care I ever had in my life, besides going to County USC Medical Center. So I didn't have to pay for my medical benefits. I had a 401k, and I was estranged from my whole family. So I was like a party of one. Me fi me was my sorority. Me fi me. Mm-hmm. So me fi me. Me fi me. So I had really nobody to depend on or look back on. So I had no choice but to do what I had to do. So when I lost my job, so I did my unemployment. Thank God Obama was in office. I did the unemployment, but I kind of knew I was going to, I'm not trying to be churchy or anything like that. I had my pastor was a prophet. The church I went to was a prophet. She had kind of called me up to the front. She said, "You know what? The Lord has been trying to get you to move for a long time. Since you not gonna move, He's gonna move you." Mm. So when I kind of got laid off, I kind of, they thought I was gonna be violent or crack crazy, and they said, "Well, we don't have to let you go." I was like, "Okay." It was like, okay. It was like, what? They was actually shocked. What? I said, okay. Because I had already got...
Mentally, you were thinking...
I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready.
Did they give you any severance?
They gave me my last check, and a little bitty severance pay was still,
But what you probably did not know at that time is that our country then was entering into a several-year period of great economic distress. The whole world did, actually. Yeah. So you probably thought, well, I'll get another job. Yeah. And that was not in the cards.
It sure wasn't. So I tried looking for work, and other law firms, they only wanted to do part-time or temp. And I'm like, I need some now. So, but I did my unemployment. At the time, my rent was I think my rent was like about $6.95 at the time. So I was only getting $1,000 unemployment. It was tight. And so I was doing that until that ran out. I got my couple extensions, and then maybe sometime I'd have a friend, they would bring me food or whatever. That ran out. My gas ended up getting cut off. I would have to take warm showers, like when it was daytime. I would have to take showers that was room temperature. Thank God I had a microwave and a George Foreman grill. That's how I kept was able to cook food. There was no gas. Really couldn't really go. I was begging for gas and saving cans to get gas money. I tried to do the state disability. I got a couple of checks of that. That was gone. I had friends that gave what they could give. I was maybe getting three and a half months behind on my rent. I've been there 13 years. My landlord was trying to do all he could to try to keep his boss off of him. And
what was that period of time from the time of being laid off to all these things running dry? How long did that take?
I want to say maybe like about 2.5 years or so, but it ran dry. October of 2012, that was it.
So October 2012 is when you were evicted from your apartment?
Yeah, I was getting ready to get evicted. I moved out before it turned into eviction because I didn't want it on my record. I had to pack up most of my stuff, and some of the stuff, I left a lot of stuff in my apartment. One of my friends in Riverside, she took a lot of my stuff to her mother's storage. Her mother was nice enough to let me have storage in her place in Riverside. I took a lot of my stuff to Riverside, but I lost a lot of my stuff. And I had to leave in the apartment because I couldn't bring it with me. I was able to take my car and a few other personal things over to my friend's house, and I stayed with her for about a month until her landlord got on her, and then I had to leave there. Then I went out to Riverside, Paris, California, stayed out there for like about 3 weeks, had to leave there. I stayed in Eastvale for a little bit, had to leave there because my friend that sold me the car, her and her husband was getting into arguments about me. And
So you're what they would call couch surfing.
I was couch surfing, and I had nowhere to go. So they dropped me off downtown with my suitcase.
In Skid Row.
In Skid Row. I said, well, I even asked my church. Even my church had paid my rent one time. She couldn't even do it no more, because it was a small congregation.
So you were tapped out completely, and your friends were tapped out, and now you are really at. And I think it's so important just for people to grasp how it is that you end up on the street after this long downward slide from 2008 to 2012, and everything you tried, and
it just wasn't working.
So now you're homeless. I'm
walking the street, and I never thought it would happen to me. I have college degrees. I ain't no Einstein, but I ain't stupid either. I was looking for work. Unemployment ran out. I did what I could. I was downtown walking the street with my suitcase. I already was dealing with some type of depression, and my doctor, a regular doctor, was already started trying to give me Prozac, but it was getting to the point that wasn't even working. And so I was walking the streets. I would go to Weingart Center, sat down there all day, couldn't find no room. I was at Fred Jordan Mission, couldn't find no place to sleep. I would eat at Midnight Mission every now and then with my suitcase. Now, once or twice a week, I had a cousin, the one that gave me the roller skates. She would let me stay at her house at night sometimes because her husband worked the graveyard shift, but she had small kids. They had to get out, so I had to leave before he came home because he didn't want nobody there. Oh. So when I knew when he was about to come home or whatever, she'd wake me up about like almost at the crack of dawn, 5 minutes to 6, and it was still dark. Come on, wake up. And thank God I showered at night. I didn't eat at her house or anything. I had an EBT card, so I never ate at her house. All I needed was a place to sleep and wash my clothes. So I had to leave before he came home.
So you would go back to Skid Row because that was the epicenter of any services, like the missions, the food. How long were you there?
I was down to Skid Row, I want to say for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But the straw that broke the camel's back, it was, I was really down on my luck. I think I didn't even have any more money on my EBT card because I was getting a little money on my EBT card, and I was getting some money on my for the food stamps. I think I was down to maybe like my last $5 or $10 on my EBT card. And I had just enough maybe to get bus fare if I needed to go on the bus. And people used to ride the buses all night, to try to stay away. So I even called one of my girlfriends, the girl that let me stay there for the month. And it was about to pour down rain. It was a Friday evening. And I said,
this would be 2000.
I want to say about 2013. It's about 2013.
Yeah.
It was 2013. And I said, can I come stay at your house tonight? It's about to rain. And she going to tell me, which hurt me to my heart, I don't think that's a good idea. And that hurt me to my heart because I've been knowing this girl since 1984. So I was like, you know what? And tears were streaming down my face. I was just couldn't stop crying. I just couldn't stop crying.
You had called her like from a phone booth, maybe, or did you have a cell phone?
I had a cell phone.
Okay.
I had a cell phone. Okay. I had one of them pay-as-you-go cell phones.
Yeah.
I had a cell phone, but I'm like, God, I can't do this no more. Lord, I just can't do this no more. And I said, fuck it, I did. I tell you what, fuck it. So a bus was about to make a left turn at 6th and San Pedro. And I said, fuck it. I just started walking. with my suitcase, and the bus was about to make a left turn. I was walking. He was honking on, beep, 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 beep.
And you knew
beep,
the bus
beep.
was coming.
Yeah, he was about to make the left turn. And I was just walking. He's like, get your ass out the way. Why would you get the fuck out the way? And he got maybe like about 5 to 10 feet from me. And after that, he cursed me out. I broke. And I managed to get up to the curb. I heard the Lord say, go to the police station. Go find the Department of Mental Health. And I had minded up to go to the police station. And I went to the police station. I asked the police man that was on duty, I said, excuse me, do you know where the Department of Mental Health is? He said, oh, it's across the street. And I said, okay. I said, well, if I go to the Department of Mental Health, at least they put me in the hospital, I'll have a place to get off the street for the night. And it was almost 5 o'clock, and everything closes at 5 o'clock. It was about 10 minutes to 5. So when I got there, it was a man sitting in the lobby, and it was just me, and she talked to him. I was like, I hope she take me before before the time ran out. And so it was maybe like about 5 minutes to 5, and she said, ma'am, can I help you? And I came on in, and I told her what happened, what was going on, and I said, I want to kill myself. And she said, why? What's wrong? And I told her my story. I said, I just don't want to live no more. She said, do you want to hurt anybody? I said, no, I just don't want to live no more. I can't. I've been homeless and I've been struggling. I've been trying. I just can't. I just don't want to do this no more. I can't do it no more. And she said, well, do you want to go to the hospital? And I said, yeah. And she said, okay, let me make a few calls and stuff. And so she made a few calls. And she said, sign these papers here, and we're going to have you on a 72-hour hold.
So danger to self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
72-hour hold. We're going to put you as what they call 5150. So the ambulance came. They took me out to County USC. I was out there for about 6 hours on a stretcher. And they said, oh, we're going to take you to some place else. I'm like, where y'all taking me now? Oh, we're going to take you to a mental health hospital. So they took me out to Panorama City to Mission Community Hospital. While I was on a 5150, when I got there, they took all my belongings and they started pumping me with drugs. They gave me Ativan. And that Ativan, I was like a space cadet.
It was like to calm you down?
Yeah, I was like a zombie. It was like, I was like, damn, what is this shit y'all gave me? I felt like I was in slow motion. I was sleepy. And everybody that was there was like walking in slow motion. And I felt like a walking zombie. And the only thing I wanted to do was sleep. That's all I wanted to do. I would sleep and I would cry, sleep and cry, sleep and cry.
Can I just ask one quick question? Because I'm like, when you got to Mission Community Hospital, did anyone actually sit, before they injected you with this medication, did anyone have a conversation with you about what you had been going through?
Not really. He just said, what's wrong? Are you suicidal? Yes, this sign is. Okay, they gave me a gown. Oh, you in this room here. And they come by with the little, they didn't give me injection. They gave me, take these. And
it's just about kind of just subduing you, basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
With this here, this cafeteria, this we have lunch here, this we have dinner here, this. Here's your roommate. There's a shower, gown. And
so that 72 hours, what was it like? Did that seem help? I mean, definitely it was a safe place to be, but did it feel like it was the beginning of something that could be helpful to you?
Maybe, but I didn't. It was like, where do I go after the 72 hours though? Yeah, where do I go? Because they would have little groups where you go. They'd sit and talk group talks or whatever. They would have a little lunch and stuff like that, and maybe a case manager try to talk to you. But my 3 days was getting ready to come up, and they say, "Okay, Miss Darby, this is like day 2. Well, we're getting ready to send you back, discharge you." You have anywhere to go? No, I ain't got nowhere to go. Y'all got to find somewhere for me to go. Wait, I got to go somewhere. And one lady saw I wasn't really like some of the other patients in there. She said, okay, Miss Darby, I'm gonna try to help you. Let me see what I can do for you. So she sent me back to the room, and about 30 minutes later, she asked me, can you do chores? Or can you do work? I said, yeah, I can do work. And then she called some other place. She said, well, we're going to send you to the Excelsior House, Dee Dee Hirsch. I said, okay. So they got my stuff together. The next day they got, well, make sure you're packed. You're gonna be going here, this. So they got me an ambulance, and out to Inglewood I went to D.D. Hirsch. And D.D. Hirsch was a crisis center where you stay for 28 days. They get you stable on your meds. They have groups. They feed you. That's almost like they have, you can sit there, have a kitchen there, and everybody has like different chores, the cooking and the cleaning, and they have medical support, and they have you go talk to a psychiatrist and things like that. They got me stable on meds. At first they was giving me Abilify. That wasn't working. It was making me drool. Then they started giving me some other medicine. I was on Latuda for a minute. And then my 28 days was about to be up again, because they was, have groups and things like that. And my 28 days was about to be up again. This was maybe like about, I'll say day 24, maybe like day 23, day 24. And I said, God, I gotta find somewhere to go. What are you gonna do? I was having to be walking through the living room, and these guys were talking. Cornerstone, they get you a place to stay. They find you this. And I'm like, now stop. I'm like, what is this Cornerstone? I got real interested. Oh, they help you find a place to stay. They give you housing. Well, how you get to this Cornerstone? Talk to your case manager. Went in and talked to my case manager. That Tuesday, I had my things. I was going out to San Fernando Valley to Van Nuys to Cornerstone.
Now, is Cornerstone another residential facility of some sort?
It's not. It's kind of like an outpatient facility, kind of almost like a drop-in center.
Like a mental health outpatient facility?
Yeah, but they help you get housing. They have transitional housing where you could get actual housing, get a voucher. So that's why I was interested, because I heard they help you get housing. That was my thing.
It's so interesting. Like, it seems so scary that had you not overheard that conversation, you wouldn't have known.
Nope.
And yet, why were they not intentionally making those plans for you?
They were not. Because it's like, if you're not really proactive about your well-being, nobody tells you anything. Mm-hmm. If I wasn't asking questions and trying to find out what's going on, how do you do this, where you go for this, I'd have been still on the streets.
Yeah, so you had to be very self-reliant.
Yes.
So you end up now now back to the San Fernando Valley.
Yes.
At Cornerstone. And describe, and I know you have spoken very favorably in the past about that experience. I think it's important to know, what was it that was so positive and productive about that place? Cornerstone
is a place where they help you get your housing. They get you stable on your meds. They have groups, and they teach. They have different groups about life skills, how to get back in. They even had people that came out of jail would go to Cornerstone to get you reacclimated into society. There was support. They had food there. You could get a shower there. They gave away clothes there. They had activities, just all sorts of things.
And they had you in a transitional living place at
that
time.
Yes, you can. They had people there that would just come in and out. But they had, if you wanted, I had to get into what they call full service partnership, because they had people that went to jail. They had them called Project New Start. They had their own separate housing, which was down the street. They lived in condominiums down the street. Mm-hmm. But I was full service partnership, where I stayed in the Sylvan House. This was an old hotel, which they made like different rooms, and they had RAs on staff there.
So that kind of began the chapter of your recovery, basically.
Yes, it
from
did.
This very, very, really challenging period that started with the loss of a job in 2008.
Yes.
Over this time, then, were they at Cornerstone the folks who were able to arrange for you to move into Villas at Gower?
Yes, they were, but I still had to be proactive about my situation. I had a case manager, but as you know, case managers get overloaded. So basically, I would just go to my case manager, and any housing listings they would have up, I would take anything. I was like Lancaster. The thing about it was, what I do know about the Section 8 program, if you get in the place, you can always transfer. I was let me get in where I need to get in. Mm-hmm. I'll worry about the logistics later. I just want to be in some place. I'll figure out the other stuff later. So I had a case manager. His name was Wes Kobe-Shigawa, a very nice Asian guy. Me and Wes, that was my buddy there. in Georgette, we got housing. We fell off of here, fell off of here. They had what they call at the time, what they called this rating system called. You had to fill out what they call a VSPDAT.
Yeah, VSPDAT. It was. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
The VSPDAT, and this based your housing. They would give you housing according to the seriousness of your mental illness.
Right, a level. It's an acuity score. Yes.
Yeah. So I was a what they call a high 3. I was a high 3. If you had 4, they automatically give you housing. Anything below that, maybe you get it, maybe you won't. But I was classified as a high 3. And I had applied for through a program called PATH. At the time, it was a community of friends, and a community of friends worked with PATH. So I ended up at Villas at Gower, August 17, 2015 was my move-in date at Villas at Gower.
So yes, and things have become so much more stable as a result.
Yes.
We are going to have to bring this to a close, but I just want to end on, because that's where I met you at Villas at Gower, right? Heartforward came in with our Radical Hospitality Initiative, and we have co-created a garden there, and I know you've been invited into this new clubhouse we're forming in Hollywood, and you're one of the inaugural ambassador members. Yes. I think maybe with this final question, Georgette, of your amazing life, and when I think about you, I think about the Elton John song, I'm Still Standing, right, because that's you. But what are you looking forward to in the next 3 to 5 years in your life?
I'm looking for better policies regarding the mental health system. Hopefully we can help eradicate homelessness as we know it, with people getting the help and the wraparound services that we need, especially with organizations like the Clubhouse and Heartforward, because I feel that there can be a big part of people getting their recovery and their stability back. Also with housing places like the Villas at Gower, which I did hear that people were so against of having that type of housing there, but people like myself have flourished and began to get life and live life and just be a part of the community. And it's not having a mental health apartment where people can live is not as bad as you think. We can become a part of the community, and half the time people pass us on the street and don't even know who we are.
Exactly. I have to point out that when that was proposed in Hollywood, and it did open up in 2012, people, especially what I would call the north of Franklin crowd, thought we were going to, like, locating a nuclear power plant there. They did not want it in the neighborhood. And yet it is such a great neighborhood asset.
It is.
And it's beautiful. And I invite anyone who's listening to this podcast, if they're in Hollywood, to come visit us and see the beautiful garden that you're a part of. And I guess I just want to end this by saying that, Georgette, we can only hypothesize how your life might have been different had the great financial crisis not happened in 2008, because you were in such a good place. And this is like the story of like how we're all like just a few steps away from personal crisis and homelessness, right? It can happen to anyone. But your journey of clawing your way back and now giving back to your community, being on the neighborhood council, and I know you're in leadership there, and being a part of this clubhouse and being a spokesperson for better sustained treatment for people who have mental health conditions. Yes. You are a leader. You are, I believe, one of the strongest women I know.
Thank you. It is my hope to get mental health, to get it destigmatized. It is not necessarily what you think it is. You know, we got people walking every day. You pass them every day, and you don't even know they have something wrong with them. So as long as we have the services that's needed, yes, there needs to be more money and more housing for people to get the services that they need, but it needs to be more understanding, and a lot of policies need to be changed, and more places like the Clubhouse need to be here in Los Angeles and other places around the city.
You're a very articulate spokesperson for what we need. And I know we are going to continue to use you in that space.
Thank you.
Thank you, Georgette, for being so generous with your story today.
Well, thank you, Carrie. I was glad to be here.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
On the day that I drove to pick up Georgette to bring her to the podcast studio, this song came into my head, and so I searched Apple Music to find the song, I'm Still Standing by Elton John, because it prepared me for my talk with her. There was a part of that song, don't you know, I'm still standing better than I ever did, looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid, and I'm still standing after all this time. I wish I could play it now, but I did not purchase the licensing rights, but maybe you could go and add it to your playlist of songs after you hear this interview. So as I bring this season to a close, I tend to be reflective as I have for the previous 3. I started this podcast during the pandemic, like a bazillion other people. 4 years ago at this time, May 2020, we were just coming out of lockdown. Our collective anxiety was palpable, and there was so much uncertainty about the future. I remember naively thinking that this shared global experience would unite us. I guess that was a Pollyanna assumption. I felt a sense of despair and sadness when I saw the ways in which it divided us. Here, 4 years later, in May 2024, I am so grateful that those very hard times are behind us, but I am mindful of the trauma it created for so many people and the setbacks, economic, emotional, physical, political, that have resulted. I am mindful of the number of people who have died and how this has a ripple effect on family and friends. According to the Our World in Data website, which I will link to this episode, over 7 million people died worldwide from COVID-19 and 1.19 million people in the United States. May they rest in peace, and for those of you who have been impacted by this tragedy, may you find peace and purpose in remembering your family or friends. I like to say, and challenge me if you will, nothing has stayed the same because of COVID. Heartforward LA is embarking upon some exciting initiatives in the coming 6 months, and I hope to translate some of these new endeavors into Season 5 of the podcast. Until then, thank you for listening and supporting. Remember to practice radical hospitality wherever you go. Thank you to my technical production partner, Aaron Stern of Verdugo Sound. Signing off for now.